name is Sitara Kumbale, and I graduated from NIT Surathkal with a degree in electrical engineering this year. So I'm a part of the batch of 2020. And professionally, I'm going to be starting a job at Wells Fargo as an analyst. I'm also really interested in economics, and I'd like to pursue an MBA with maybe a focus in economics or something related to economics later. So today I'm just going to be giving you an introduction into economics. What is economics? Like, I've seen so many fancy loaded definitions of economics. You can go to Investopedia, they'll tell you something about how economics is a social science concerned with the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. Now, this sounds extremely complicated, and I think this really doesn't encompass what economics is. To put it simply, economics is how people like you and me, or a company like Apple, Google, whatever you want to call it, makes themselves as best off in a world. Like, we are trying to make ourselves happy. Companies are just trying to make as much profit as they can in a world where resources are extremely scarce. So as you know, natural resources run out. We're just trying to make ourselves as happy as possible. So this is literally what economics is. It's as simple as making yourself as happy as possible. How I started learning economics and how I fell in love with the subject. There's an extremely interesting book called Free Economics. A lot of you may have heard about it because extremely well known. But I read it, I guess, around 2 years ago. And I just feel that the way they describe economics in the book is extremely interesting. They relate economics to everyday scenarios. I think one of the first examples in the book is about how abortion is related to reduction in crime. So they talk about New York City and how the crime rate was extremely through the roof somewhere in the 1970s and 90s and 1980s, and suddenly in 1990s there's a massive reduction in crime. So, and like, it was highly attributed to simple things like how the police became more efficient and how like laws changed and became a lot more stricter. But the author of economics relates it to something entirely different. So how he describes it is, because abortion is generally like, it's seeking out by like all these communities that aren't really well to do, and how like some mothers who cannot afford to raise their children seek out abortion. Now these children, abortion was legalized in 1973. So these children of who would have been born if not for abortion would have been the ones who would have committed more crimes, statistically speaking, because they were from marginalized communities and they needed the money. So it's really interesting. And another important thing, because we've seen it, is how teachers teach based on like test scores, like very simple everyday examples that you can really relate to, because like a lot of us are students, we've seen how teachers teach. So economics as a whole is divided into two branches. There's macroeconomics and there's microeconomics. Macroeconomics basically deals with, as the name suggests, it deals with the bigger things, like how a country's economy works. Like, there are terms you might have read about, GDP, which is how much, like, the gross product a country produces every year. But microeconomics, on the other hand, deals with smaller things like supply and demand, like of a good in like a small market. It deals with things like how consumers consume their goods. So as a whole, investors are people who generally use macroeconomics because they want to predict how the markets will move and things like that. Whereas microeconomics is generally used by someone like a manager or someone who's like really into economics, trying to study like bigger problems, maybe poverty or something like that. So they want to understand how supply and demand kind of influences these bigger things. Okay, so demand, in similar terms, demand is quantity demanded is literally what you're asking for. If I go to a market and if I want to buy 10 pencils, that is the quantity of pencils that me as a customer is demanding at a particular price. Now, if the price increases, I may not want 10 pencils anymore. I may want 9 pencils now. So naturally, as the price increases, the quantity demanded decreases because I just do not want as many things anymore, maybe because I can't afford them. Quantity supplied is how much a firm can supply at a particular quantity. So like maybe a pencil producing firm may be able to produce 10 pencils at a price of 4 rupees each. But if that price increases to 5 rupees, they may be able to produce more pencils. Now, obviously, you might have wondered, okay, how do these goods appear? Demand and supply. Since I'm demanding for something, a firm will produce it, and they'll put it out into the market because I'm demanding it. And when they sell it to me, they will sell it at a price. So they will sell it at a price. So they make a profit. Now, you might have also wondered, how is it that a particular price is fixed? How do we know that a gel pen is 10 rupees, for example? This is something that we call a market equilibrium. As you know, as you can see in the picture here, the demand curve slopes downward because as prices increase, the demand for quantity decreases naturally. If a pen costs more, I'll want less of the pen. Now, again, as the price increases, the supply also increases, because for a company, if they're selling more, like if they're selling a pencil for a higher price, they'll make a better profit. So now these curves are plotted on the same figure. And as you can see, there is a intersection. Now, when it intersects, that is called the market equilibrium. And that is where the price is set. It's basically the amount that a customer is willing to pay and the price that a firm is willing to supply the good at match at this point. So this is a simplified version of demand and supply. Again, if you're more interested, there are a lot of resources and you can read up. Okay, next, I'll just explain about another really simple concept, which is called marginal utility. I'll do this by giving you a very simple example. Let's assume that you go to like Domino's and you order a pizza and you're splitting it with your friend or something. So you guys order a large pizza. And the first slice that you eat gives you immense happiness because you've been craving a pizza. It's post-pandemic and everything, and like it's awesome. So you take the first pizza, you love it. The second slice, I mean, you still like it, but you're a little full from the first. And as the number of slices you eat increases, you're getting more and more full. So you probably don't derive as much satisfaction from the fourth slice as you may derive from the first slice. So this is a very simple concept that is called diminishing marginal utility. Utility is pretty much just happiness or satisfaction of what you get from consuming that pizza slice. So diminishing marginal utility is just as you have more and more of a good or more and more of a product, you just don't derive as much happiness from it as the number increases. It's just as simple as that. So this is another fundamental concept because it gives rise, like it lays the foundation for a lot of other economic concepts. So opportunity costs, again, you define it, it's a very loaded term, the loss of one alternative when you choose another. But what alternatives are we talking about? We're talking about something very simple. Maybe you sacrifice some time with your friends to do an assignment. Now, when you're doing an assignment, you may be thinking, okay, it's Friday night, I want to go out with my friends. But that alternative that you give up, that Friday night, is the opportunity cost. So the opportunity cost of you doing your assignment is you going out with your friends. It's honestly, again, I just feel like I'm trying to relate it to simpler topics. So to prove that economics is for everyone. Okay, now you might have read this very interesting term in the newspaper, GDP, gross domestic product. What does it mean? It's very simple. It literally means all the goods, the market value, which is basically the selling price of all the goods and services, everything that a country produces. Let's just assume that there's this small country with 4 organizations, 4 firms, A, B, C, D, and each of them produce 10 goods. And the GDP is just the sum total of that. That's it. So you may have read that USA has the highest GDP in the world because they produce the most number of goods and services. Similarly, India also has a pretty nice GDP. So why is GDP so important? Because it is a predictor of how well a country is doing. So if the GDP is continuously rising, it basically means that there's growth in the country. And this means that more jobs are being created. And if the GDP is falling, if the GDP is projected to fall as well, it is an indicator of maybe there may be a chance of a recession where people lose jobs. So it's basically a big figure which kind of acts as a main indicator. All right, so my experience so far, I've worked on a number of projects. 2 of the most important ones. I worked on a project that forecasted the Indian GDP. We used a lot of statistics for that as well. We used some economic indicators as well as some deep learning as well and time series. Again, this was not completely an economics-based project. It also had a large amount of statistics. Another project that I mentored was predicting currency exchange values based on like underlying economic indicators, which is basically factors that influence these currency exchange rates. Again, we used some deep learning in this. So both of these projects had a large amount of statistics. So again, if you're learning economics, you don't have to learn statistics. You also don't have to learn economics to be doing projects. You can just learn it to appreciate the subject and to kind of understand the way the world works in economic terms. All right, so some of these references is like what I think would be amazing to start off with. Read for economics. There's absolutely nothing like it. it relates everything that you see in everyday life to economics. And I think it's an amazing starting point. So if you want to learn economics in a more technical sense, if you want definitions and to understand the theory behind things, Investopedia has amazing theory, and it's a good place to start off. Another really nice book is The Undercover Economist, which I read after Freakonomics. Again, it's something very similar to Freakonomics, but the examples are a little more high level.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe and click on the bell button as to not miss out any content. Contact us here.